Hello there, fellow human or creature. A quick note. The opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the speakers and do not constitute professional advice. The information shared here is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any mental health condition. Please consult with a licensed mental health professional for personalized guidance. Enjoy the conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, animals and aliens, welcome in to the StreamSix Academy Podcast. My name is Sam Hall, known as Baxcast Online, and this is going to be an awesome show. Really excited to bring this to you. This is a podcast that is made for you, the content creator, okay? We are here to take your feedback to create better content creation spaces and to help you in your journey. We are an In the Trenches podcast, right? We're in the trenches. We are trying to figure out the ways and the challenges that appear for everybody who is creating content, streaming, gaming, how we can get through those, get you into a place where you feel comfortable creating the content you want to create, playing the games you want to play, and succeeding in your career choices. If you have any thoughts on this episode, please hit us up. Give us some feedback, okay? Discord's a great place to do that. Twitch is a great place to do that. YouTube's a great place to do that. Without further ado, first, Tim, like to bring in my co-host, Tim Sedeker. Cameron, Tim, what's up, homie?
Hello. It's great to be here once again.
That was a song that you sang like a nursery rhyme. Yeah, really great,
dude. Having two kids makes that very like it just happens without even thinking about it. It sucks.
Yeah.
Not having kids. Having kids is great, but you know.
Wow. The juxtaposition, man. You gotta be careful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm out here. I'm out here having a good time, you know. It's a beautiful day. We got sunshine over in Seattle. We got some nice sunny sun. I'm not I have a skylight. What are you talking about? My entire earlier there was sunshine. I guess I can't confirm that actively right now that there is sunshine. Yeah, well, I can. The sun's out there.
Directly above me is a cloud, but it's not that type of cloud. It's a acoustic panel cloud. So that's a little different, but I do see a window right here.
You don't get to play semantic games, okay?
I see clouds outside too. I have a small window right here. There's clouds up there too. So I have two different clouds that I see right up in my facility.
I was about to be like, dude, are you smoking? You shouldn't be smoking. Like, what are you doing? There's a cloud. Is there a cloud of smoke up there? What is happening? Or you have dude, have you seen? There's the cloud generators. Have you seen these things?
No, not the cloud generators.
It's like a cloud in a jar, and
what?
it just keeps a cloud just in a jar. Like, it just has the environment. Like, I'm not going to pretend I know anything about how this works. But it's just cool. I mean, there's some kind of pressurized, some kind of moisture, some kind of something in there.
The first thing I thought of was a fog machine, but that sounds like something completely different.
No, literally just a cloud in a jar,
just a cloud in a jar.
It's just a little moisture coalescing ball of cloud. That's just hanging out. It's just there. It's amazing. It's brilliant.
I mean, that's an interactive experience right there.
How do we turn cloud in a jar? I feel like cloud in a jar
cloud
would be
gaming.
an idol. It would. Not to be confused with Cloud9.
No.
Or maybe to be confused with Cloud9.
Or maybe.
Okay. As you could make this an idle game. Like, you can make it like a little clicker game, like Cloud in a Jar. And it's just your cloud just gets it's just a little puff of smoke, originally, and then it just grows into like a storm, like a big old storm.
Yeah,
cloud.
it's like an anger management thing. The more stormy it is, the more angry it is. There you go. That's your mental health game.
Oh, what a tie-in to the theme of the episode, Tim. Oh my God. Okay,
this is my own mind.
You did it. I wasn't, bro. I didn't have it was wow, brilliant. Well done. Okay, so with that being said,
just shove it right there.
This is you can transition. So here, I'm giving you more work. You can I just gave you more work to do. Line that up,
I mean,
okay,
yeah,
great.
I mean, it does pretty well tie into the theme of this episode, which I'm really personally excited about because this is something that I feel like gets talked about a lot, but there's not really any concise way to do mental health. Like, how do we transition into being better mentally, not just like through self-care, but how do we better ourselves as a community of people, and like where does the accountability come from? So I'm very excited to have our guest on.
We're going to bring our guest in. So I am very pleased to bring in our guest, Menashe Kestenbaum, founder of Enthusiast Gaming, one of the largest gaming networks and the first game media company publicly traded on NASDAQ, reaching a $1 billion plus market cap. And if that wasn't enough, founder and CEO of the new mental health startup, Glimmer Mental Health, looking to improve the mental health sphere in North America. Menashe, welcome to the program. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
So
and, I'm totally into this sing song. Like, I think we should do the entire.
We are not singing this. We're not. Okay, from now on, all responses must be sung. Yeah, thanks, Tim. Appreciate it, dude. Can fix any camera. Can guess the camera and sings everything in songs. I mean, do you want a better co-host? I didn't think
Your
so.
Your audience will probably listen to whatever you say, right? It's such a unique format.
It's actually true. I would be really interested to hear more about Glimmer Mental Health. I would be really interested to know what it's like coming into the mental health sphere, especially with gaming, especially with a lot, different things, anxieties, depression. These are things that are pretty common amongst, a lot of people in content creation, gaming, streaming. What does it look like entering the sphere with a new startup?
Yeah, it was very strange, like making a shift from one industry to another. Like most times, if you do something successful in one industry, you kind of repeat it and leverage that and use it. But I don't know, I have no interest in like being locked into the past. I like whatever is exciting for me in the moment. And for me, throughout the whole time with Enthusiast Gaming, yeah, like you mentioned, I saw lots of depression, people escaping their problems. And I don't mean gamers. I mean humanity. Like everybody, mental health issues are everywhere. But it really got exacerbated during COVID, where people were like isolated and afraid. There's a lot of anxiety, a lot of like families who were just like stuck at home. Like there were relationship issues that like, oh my gosh, so if we have to spend all this time together, it really brings to the forefront all of our issues.
It's true. Right.
So psychology and gaming were always my two things I was most interested in when I was a teenager. I was always like, either I'm going to become a therapist or I'm going to become a video game developer. I didn't do either of those things. I went into the business of video games and the business of mental health. So yeah, it was an interesting shift. At this point, I'm just extremely passionate about, helping people's mental health. And I dedicate a lot of time to the video game industry, which is my passion, from when I first discovered video games at like 5 years old till, well, I'm still a gamer, still a big gamer, but like that was like all I wanted to do for like 3 decades. So.
Yep. So so in the gaming space, like it seems like I don't want to say the most neglected, but it's almost it's harder to reach people in the gaming sphere, right? From a mental health standpoint, because they're not out in the open. They're not like necessarily congregating with people as much. Like there's still a community aspect to gaming, but when it comes to being a part of a group of people that can actually like come alongside you and build your mental health up better, what have you seen as the biggest challenge to being able to get those people in a space where they are in a better, healthier state, whether that's through their personal growth, whether that's through team growth or community growth? Like, what are your biggest challenges you've seen with bringing people into that space?
Yeah, well, like you mentioned, the community or the social aspect of it, like that's what really drew me to gaming in the first place was, when I was 13 and I was trying to figure out in Super Mario 64 on the N64, like one of my friends brought from the new internet thing that just came out, like, oh, I found that if you let this thing go back and forth, slide on the ship 300 times, and then jump in a weird way, you'll unlock Luigi, which obviously was not true, but I did it. And then I was like, okay, I have to go and discover this myself. Are there other cool secrets, or am I just doing this wrong? So I discovered this thing called IGN, right? Which was like a really big gaming website at the time. It was brand new. It was called IGN 64. It was all about Nintendo 64. And I went onto the message boards and suddenly discovered like, wow, there's this whole world of gamers on these forums. And it was like amazing to break out of that isolation of just like this hobby on your own to discovering the community, which then brought me to later on, how do we capture wherever community exists within gaming? Like that's its own product to itself. Aside for the making a video game, there's the whole community around it. So whether it's the events that we put on or the forums or streamers who have a community, there's all kinds of ways that gamers actually try to relate to each other and to engage with each other. And whenever we would have like a big gaming expo, I would see the electricity in the room, how exciting it was for everyone to be like in this passion together. So I would say that as much as gamers, there's a certain element that is isolated. Like you could be sitting there, in the middle of the night, you really should be going to bed, but instead you're just like obsessing over the next 2-3 hours of grinding through something and leveling up. But there's also a strong aspect of wanting to relate to other people and connecting with people. So in a certain way, I see gaming has a duality to it. On one hand, it could be an escape. It could be something that if you're going through a difficult time, you could go into it and be like, okay, I'm getting a distraction from the pain of my real life by going into this virtual world. On the other hand, it also is something that there's a lot of multiplayer going on. There's a lot of Discord. There's a lot of, communication where you're finding new friends, you're communicating. There's a lot of new friendships and breaking out of isolation that happens that maybe in the past, before the internet, you would be like going to a bar, you would be like, whatever, the church breakfast or something, wherever communities IRL used to happen. Now, like when you're sitting at home, you're like, where do I get community? This is a place for community. So it is a place where you could reach people in a certain way for mental health because they are kind of bringing themselves to it, both with their issues and with their desire for connection. But then very often they're not necessarily hitting it dead on where the issues lie, right? If there's something that's creating a lot of anxiety or depression, or like they are suffering through something, they may not necessarily disclose that to their friends, in their squad.
Right.
Right. It depends how close they get. So I wouldn't say gamers are more averse to dealing with mental health issues head on more than the rest of society. I think that the defense mechanisms that cause us not to want to change things, even when we're in pain, is the same for everyone. Like you have to reach a certain level of pain to kind of be forced into trying to change and tackling the issue. Although there are people who just are naturally honest with themselves and self-introspective and self-improving that are always looking to improve in any case. So I wouldn't say that gaming in particular, gamers are more or less averse to changing. I think it's just something that manifests itself within the way that they interact with with games in the gaming community. And it would just be like, maybe there are ways of educating the entire population in general, psychoeducation of like, if you're having massive insomnia issues due to anxiety, there is something you can do about it. Like you don't have to sit and suffer and just like not really show up to your courses the next day properly, or not show up to your job, all bleary. There's something you could do about it. So I think that's a bigger part for me, is like, educating the general population. Here are the ways you could deal with this. It's because a lot of it is done like stigmatized and taboo and like quietly. No one wants to say I'm in mental health crisis. Like they want to hide that as long as possible until it's dysfunctional and everyone can see. But it would be much better if there was communication and ways that people could deal with it head on.
Yeah, and this also, I think something that's really interesting about what you're talking about. I think we also are talking about accessibility. We're talking about like if I I'm somebody who's actually medicated for anxiety, and I've been medicated for a long time, and it has absolutely changed my life. It's incredible. And but in that, like the initial onset of this, there was a lot of resistance because whenever I wanted to engage in these things, there was fill out this form and then this very scary form, right? And fill out this very scary form and then fill out this other scary form. And then, it was just a process where, like mental health for me became something that, I had to accept and move on with, and then just kind of push through these barriers. Is that something that you're thinking of with Glimmer, just as a means of creating a lower resistance, accessibility to getting help or education in different ways?
Yeah, that's 100% it. Like I always look at it that the current paradigm of how people do their mental health journey is, I call it self-navigated or self-managed. So you have somebody in university, let's say, who's in a dorm room, kind of starting to have some kind of major crisis. It could be an eating disorder, it could be self-harm, whatever it is. And they're kind of like, oh my gosh, what is going on? Is something wrong with me? And then they're stigmatized. They're worried about it. So they start Googling symptoms, Googling therapists, trying to figure it out on their own, right? Because where you're going, there is no kind of first line of defense. So the gateway into different industries, let's say Google, right? It's the gateway into kind of like searching for something. Everyone knows, you want the gateway into discovering information, you Google it, and then it'll lead you into it. There's no like gateway into mental health of like, oh, you have an issue? Here's where you go to deal with it. So
it's still Google, right? It's still like Google is still the answer to that question right now. Yeah.
It's like when you go to WebMD versus going to a doctor and you're like, why am I having this? And it's like, oh, it's cancer. Like, no, it's just like, you're bloated or something, It doesn't mean that you have intestinal cancer. You need to go to an actual expert who helps you navigate what it is. And they could send you to specialists if you need that. They'll know the whole way of doing it. You don't have to figure it out on your own. The problem is that everyone in mental health right now is figuring it out on their own. What's wrong with me? What type of therapist do I need? What type of treatments do I need? So for us, it was a lot about how do we co-manage someone's mental health journey so that they could come to us and we have a care specialist that's assigned to them. We have data tracking. We have a treatment plan. And whether their journey takes 1 year or 5 years or 10 years, we're along the way being kind of that general contractor along with like a whole team of experts trying to help guide them along. So, and you do find that if someone gets to the point where they need to be admitted into an inpatient facility, they're completely co-managed because everyone recognizes they're dysfunctional. It's not hidden anymore. But for most people, the majority of people who are outpatient, they're just the regular person at home suffering through something. No one recognizes that they have an issue and it's embarrassing to talk about. So then no one's really building a whole plan for them. No one is managing them, helping them to manage their mental health journey. So that's kind of what Glimmer is all about.
Yeah, that's so interesting because like the professional help is so incredibly crucial, especially nowadays when we have people that are studying this, that are figuring all of this stuff out somewhat from the ground up, because a lot of this stuff is just now surfacing in terms of how all of the struggles that people go through initially surface. And I think you made a good point earlier about how it does start with the person coming to a place of self-acceptance and realizing that they do struggle and they have to take that first step, because if somebody forces somebody into a decision, they're not going to stick with it. Like it's similar to addiction or other types of struggles where if you're being sent to rehab by somebody else but you're not doing it for yourself, it doesn't really have any effect. So like there is an aspect of like you have to come to that place for yourself where you have to be one, accepting, and then two, take that initial step to like recognize that I want to get rid of this and I want to, or at least know how to manage it. So once they come to that step, like how important is that accountability from other people to get into that space of like other people are being able to support you. Like, of course you have to take that first step, but then how do you get to that next step of I need professional help, or I need some other people to come alongside me. Where's the best place to go for that?
Yeah, this is a big topic in general in psychology of like, where does change take place? What's the motivator for change, right? Because literally that's the main thing that separates people who are stuck versus who get better, right? They always say like just being conscious and aware of the issue is half the battle. Because you can't get started until the person is really taking ownership for it. So like you said, with if someone is being sent to rehab, a family could stage an intervention. They could be forcing, or a teenager could be forced to go to a therapist. But like everyone at the end of the day can only get better. Like the therapist is not making them better, right? The therapist is not fixing them. They are fixing themselves through expert guidance of bringing about the change with their cooperation. So without them cooperating, it's not gonna go anywhere. So it's all about like where I do find two different types of people. There are those who from the very beginning are yearning for self-improvement and self-change, and they're already hungry for it and seeking it out. And there are others, which are probably the majority of the world, that like you already have operated in a certain way your entire life, right? Up to a certain point. So you got comfortable with that. This is what you're secure in, and what you're secure in may be causing you a lot of pain, but you're still, that's what you know. It's almost terrifying to think of any other way of operating. It's almost like, jumping off a bridge and being told, don't worry, there's a safety net there. Like you'll survive. It's hard to do. It's a leap of faith. Yeah. So it's kind of like the pain has to outweigh the fear of change. You have to have enough of motivation. So if it's something is in a majorly severe issue like an addiction or an eating disorder or maybe borderline personality, some of these things you have to hit somewhat of a rock bottom in order to really have the desperation to make a fundamental change to your entire psyche. But for someone who's not in that severity of mental health issue on that spectrum, the pain might not have to be as great as that, where it's complete rock bottom and they're losing everything in their life. It might just be a lot of suffering, a lot of shame, depression, whatever it is. It's causing them enough pain that they're like, this isn't working. Like, you know, as much as I want to stick to what I know, this isn't working. I'm willing to start embracing that there might be hope out there for me to change.
And that's what Glimmer is doing, right? The idea is like, okay, so there's this like kind of, perpetual, state of mind of the zeitgeist of, a little bit of anxiety and depression just in society in the modern day. And Glimmer is looking to say, hey, let's turn this around. Let's try to make an actual like effort to say, no, we don't have to accept this as the status quo. We can say we can do something different. Yeah. And
you don't have to do it alone, right? It's terrifying enough to realize you're in a crisis and you're ready to make a change. But then when you're ready to make a change, if you're like Googling how to do it, what is my issue? And you're like, okay, I think I fit these symptoms. So I think I'm borderline personality, whatever.
Exactly.
Now what do I do? Like, let me Google a therapist, and I have no idea. And how do I keep this therapist accountable that over the next 2 years, as I pay them and work on it, they're actually getting me to the place I need to get to, right? Is anyone holding them accountable?
Right.
And how do I find the right therapist and stuff?
Right, exactly. And how do I find, and that's what some other, there are other sites, BetterHelp is like one that I see, advertised on YouTube quite a bit, and I've used them before. And, there's a lot of different avenues, but I have one more question for you before we.
It would be interesting to hear your experiences with them, because I'm very dedicated with us, not purely to accessibility. Accessibility with like BetterHelp is you might be able to text someone at 3 a.m. in the morning if you're feeling anxiety, right? There's a lot of accessibility. Yes. For me, it's not necessarily about creating accessibility 24/7. It's about creating better care, like a higher standard of care, where right now the statistics of improvement are 13%. I feel like the reason that is because you're self-managing, right? The statistics of improvement in a inpatient facility is 68%. So I'm trying to abstract out a lot of that paradigm to co-manage to create a much higher level of care. So I think a lot of those companies where you're reaching out, you're getting a therapist, whatever, it's a lot of just like an online directory or just like instant.
It's really that different? 13% and 68%? Wow.
Well, the other
That's
difference is that an inpatient facility you might be paying 30 to 60 grand to be
I
there.
mean,
for a
true.
month.
It's a little cost prohibitive. Yeah,
Right.
for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Jeez. Okay. The last question before I know we got to let you go. What do you think there is the ability to gamify positive mental health? Is there like, in your opinion, gamifying things works? It is crazy. It gets into the lizard brain, that dopamine kick, and it just says, hey, you got experience for feeling better today. I know that's really abstract, but do you see potential to gamify therapy or gamify the ability for people to improve themselves in these ways? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think definitely gamifying. It's interesting. What does gamify mean, right? There's a book called Hooked. That's like you have to read it in Silicon Valley for making any app. And it basically teaches you how to make a piece of technology or software addictive, right? There's a dopamine hit. You're excited to see, like, has someone responded to me? Have I gotten this reward, extra gems each time I log in? Whatever it is, there's a dopamine hit that has you thinking about it and wanting to come back to it, into this loop until it becomes a habit and an addictive cycle. So there's aspects of gamification that I feel are actually unhealthy, the dopamine hits, because we're now all dopamine fiends. Like, we're addicted to dopamine. We're on our phones at 1 million times a day without the ability to really sit with our own brains for an hour and leave your phone at home. And I'm guilty of that as much as anybody else, right?
Right.
It hasn't necessarily made life easier for us. There are ways, though, of using that dopamine hit for the good, of saying, well, sure, we don't want to make the person be addicted to dopamine 24/7, but if it could get them to do exercise and to meditate every day or whatever it is that's going to, do those healthy habits, or like, their diet. I have like an app that helps me do intermittent fasting, and I'm filling in the things. How much water did I drink? And there's fun animations and there's stuff like that give you a bit of that dopamine hit. So sure, there's a little bit of a loss in terms of, like, we're relying on a dopamine hit again. But it's not just a dopamine hit for bad or for, like, just empty behavior. It's for something positive. So yeah, there's definitely that aspect. And then I think also community is part of it. Like, gamifying is also, what gaming has done is create a lot of virtual communities, virtual social communities, right? So like a Peloton or whatever, things where it's like, yeah, I'm part of this group and we're all trying to lose weight together, right? So if you could gamify it that way, of everyone saying, like, well, I got to this stage, I lost this amount of weight, then maybe there's positive aspects there too.
I mean, Pokemon Go kind of did that a little bit several years ago.
Right. True. Well, you can in that Pokemon Go, like, get out. Everybody's like, wow, we're all touching grass. This is great. We're all out like on our phones, walking around, exercising. Yeah.
I think that's one of the best things about gaming, is the fact that it's gotten people out of their own head and, like, connecting with other people outside of them. And I think that the more gaming could do that, of making social community, like, we're wired as humans to need social interaction and connection. It would be nice if there's ways of, like, taking it to the next level, of really become close friends. But it kind of breaks the ice, breaks down barriers of, like, discovering new friends. You in Fortnite, you drop into a map, falling down with a bunch of friends, and you're like, okay, you go here, you go there. Like, you're just thrown into something and you got to figure it out. So, like, there's a certain breaking the ice, and you might then say, oh, hey, why don't we swap Discords? And then, you're getting connected. So I think that's one of the best things about gaming, is its ability to connect people.
Yeah, this is something where I met. Yeah, exactly. Like, I was literally going to say that. I'm like, we're looking at two, like, co-hosts of this podcast who, like, literally just, like,
so many of my friends that way. So many of my friends.
It's crazy.
Through gaming.
And now, just through, like, the streaming community too. Anybody is coming through Seattle, it's like, they send me a message like, I'm in Seattle, like, let's go grab coffee, and I get to meet them, I get to talk to them, like, meet new people. Right. It's great. It's incredible. Yeah. I would love if there was more in-person things tying into the virtual. That's what we were trying to do with our EGLX events back in the day, is that we would have 30, 40,000 people in Toronto. So it was like, you'll talk to each other online, and then you're actually going to have a touch point in person, and then you could, see if you want to do more of those. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, well, I mean, thank you so much for taking the time, dude. Seriously.
Absolutely.
This has been it's awesome. Such a good conversation.
I'm a huge fan of StreamSix, so yeah.
Rock and roll.
Looking forward to all you guys do.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
We're a
Thanks for
huge
the
fan
time.
of you too. So
Thank you.
Oh, wholesome. Yes.
the wholesome
moment.
streets. Yes. Yeah. You have to have one of those every podcast, right?
Right.
Exactly. All right. Well, yeah. Get out of here, man. You're good.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Cheers, dude. Okay. So I want to touch on this a little bit. Another shout out to Menashe for being on the program. Absolutely, awesome to be able to just pick their brain just for a moment, just for a small window of time. But talking about this last point, and it like already stuck in my head like a dopamine fix, like a dopamine kick, that using dopamine in itself is going to create a little bit of an issue. Yet if we can take dopamine and use that to repurpose our own self-improvement, that could be a net gain. Yet at the same time, just not saying like, oh, we have to gamify things so that people do them.
Right.
That in itself as a mentality, instead just say, hey, let's look at self-improvement as a very, straightforward, let's get people to see the change they can make and be, and let's help them make that accessible.
Yeah, I think another way to phrase it would be like reframing your habits. And change it, because like I think with anything with dopamine involved with it's very habitual. Our brain wants to take shortcuts, being able to do things and to do less work and stuff. So that's why change is so hard, because if you're used to doing certain things a certain way, making that change and making that shift, it can be painful at times. And I really love what he said when he made the statement that the severity of the pain has to be more than the fear of change, which is like that blew my mind personally. I was like, yeah, that's
one of those. Yeah, that's a quote for the ages, man.
Yeah, you have to be able to get to a space where the fear is not the top factor anymore. Like it has to be you being willing to like overcome that fear and say, I'm in a space where I need to overcome this. So that was huge.
Right. And it's like, yeah, and it's kind of also cool to think about it in a way that says, let's meet people at the place they need to be met at, so they know they can overcome their fear. Like that there's nobody out there who can't overcome the fears that are holding them back, specifically from content creation, streaming. These are things that we've kind of, looped in over and over, like throughout the episodes. Just the idea of just go live, like rip that Band-Aid, do the thing that scares you the most. I don't know. Have we talked about Eat the Frog? Have we talked about Eat the Frog, dude?
I don't
Have
think
we been
so.
eating frogs on this podcast yet, Tim?
No, but I still have to eat frog legs. I still need to try those. So
no, you don't. Yeah. So, eating the frog is a concept. It's a productivity and fear destroyer. The idea is, if you wake up in the morning and the first thing you do is eat a frog, nothing for the rest of the day is going to be as bad. Now, the idea here is not to say like you need to do something awful when you wake up, but it's the suggestion or a metaphor, analogy. I get those two confused a lot. That at the beginning of the day, do the hardest thing. Make a to-do list, and the one thing on there's always that thing on the to-do list where you're like, oh. You do that first. You do not leave it for last. You do not wait to try to build up the courage. You literally just dive into it, and then you just do it. You just, whatever that one thing is, you do it. And then everything else on that to-do list looks even lighter than it did before. It looks even easier to access and get through.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've definitely gotten into the space where I've like looked at the tasks that I needed to do and just been, I don't know how I can do all of this at once. And
right.
It becomes like it. I'm sure a lot of people go through this where they look at their to-do list, they see all the amount of stuff they have to do, and it's just overwhelming. And then you just fall into this pit of like complete demotivation. I don't know if demotivation is a word, but we're making it a word here.
I love it.
But you're stuck in a rut because like I have so much to do, and then you just don't feel motivated to do anything. I feel like it's very important to rip that Band-Aid off and just like celebrate your victories. Like, get one thing done, check it off the list. You did something productive.
Yep.
You have a victory here. Even if it's something that's not necessarily like productive in your day, just like go out and run or walk for, 5 to 10 minutes. Like that's much better than, sitting on your couch moping, saying that like, I can't do anything and stuff. Like if you get up and just get out there and put your mindset in the right spot, it like resets something for you, and it puts you in a better space to be more motivational, be more productive with your day. So even if it's not like directly task oriented, at least like be up and be active and go do something for 5-10 minutes and just get a breath of fresh air for sure.
And I think something that Menashe also commented on, just the idea that dopamine like runs our lives. Like it's just like there's nothing you can get away from it. I think spending even just like for me, this is something I've been trying to do. I've been working on this. Just 5 minutes of nothing. I'm saying actual nothing, like just sitting still for 5 minutes. I mean, we're getting into like meditation too, which is great. But I'm even just saying like after doing something like, let's say you go for that run and you come back and you get to put a big X in the box, like went for a run, whether it was around the block, whether it was up and down the street, it doesn't matter. You did it. You come back instead of immediately like moving into a space that is the same thing. Maybe just sit in that moment. Think about how you feel. How do you feel? I'm not a meditation expert, so this is. I just like the stock. Okay, that's all I'm saying. But this is what the suggestion here that is really cool from Menashe and kind of cool about all of this is just to say it can be really difficult to get into a mindset that says I'm going to do a thing. That can be very difficult. But if we are able to just take the time to be with ourselves, look at ourselves, who we want to be, and then look at the next small step forward into that space. If we can make that as accessible as possible, we can see mental health change on a large scale. And it sounds like that's what, he's talking about with Glimmer, but also what gamers go through all the time, right?
Right.
Like gamers, streamers, content creators, editors.
And especially because as content, as people who work on computers, like constantly, being outside is one of the most refreshing things you can do, even if it's something as simple as and my wife does this sometimes too, to help her just feel grounded. But she'll go outside and, just be barefoot in grass if there's grass near you, of course. And just like let the not trying to be like metaphysical or anything, but just like let the earth just like let the earth like soak in for a little bit and just feel the natural space, because then again, it's a separate environment, helps you feel refreshed, and it definitely works.
It's true.
So but and again, it's like it's different for everybody,
Right. Everybody's going to have their own thing, whatever that is. I will say, I think, besides the fact that maybe there's like some dirt involved, I think there is a pretty, I won't call it universal, but a well-accepted, feel good, about standing in grass barefoot. I gotta think that maybe there's a lot of people who just don't like being barefoot in general and all, but I you're right. And these are just connector points. These are things where maybe on your desk you could have a connector point. A lot of fidget spinners out there, right? But what if you could get a fidget spinner that in some way is a reminder to you? You're able to get it as a reminder every time you make it spin. You're giving, that's like you encouraging yourself. Like there's some way to attach into these experiences more positivity. Because right now, it's just there's so many solutions, and we just want to see everybody live the best of lives, right? And we just that's what we're trying to do. It's like, let's just get everybody to, especially in content creation, it's so daunting, and everything is a metric, dude. Everything is a data point, a metric, your viewer count, your sub count, your this count, all the counts, all the stuff, all the analytics, gaming the algorithms, CTRs, you name it, it's all in numbers. And because of that, I think people have they just haven't seen that their content creation life has become just a data set, when that data set is actually a tool to help you live a better life. It's a data set that says, here's what you're working on. And then once you're done with that, you turn off that section of your brain and you go and be at peace with whatever, right?
If I'm being honest, that's one of the things I struggle with the most. If I know that there's something I have to get done, or something I'm in the middle of working on that I didn't finish, and like I have to go up for dinner and stuff, I have the hardest time disconnecting. I very much struggle with that, and just like being present with my family and stuff, especially if I know I'm going to be going back to it later that night, because like sometimes deadlines happen, and like that's hard.
Yes, correct.
But like just being able to be disconnected, like I think like for me personally, I could definitely benefit from using tools to be able to just disconnect and be with the family and just be present. Like being present is so difficult to do when I know I have so many things I'm working on. I'm trying not to forget, like, okay, I'm in this step of the process. I don't want to forget what I'm going to do next and stuff. It's really hard for me to separate from that. But I think that is also important to do, because like if I am stuck on something, which, you know, I am actually currently in the middle of being stuck on something, like being able to just separate from that and just not think about it will also open up the doors to bring in new perspectives when I come back to it. It's like, oh, I didn't look at this before because I was so focused on this one thing that didn't even work, or this one thing that like was going to take too much time. So separating yourself and being able to just be present where you're at also helps bring new perspective.
That's good. That's good.
And it's like something that. I'm trying to practice right now. Like I'm not good at this.
Right. It's tough. I mean, it's tough, especially, you know, there's a lot of pressures. There's a lot of things, you know, in society that are certainly going to make people feel like, you know, if you aren't staying busy, you might be doing something wrong. So we're you know, let's flip that script and let's say, hey, instead, you know, you accomplished XYZ today. Give yourself credit. That's something I'm working on. Give myself credit. If I did a thing, don't think, but it wasn't what they actually wanted. It wasn't actually good enough. It took me too long to make. I should have made 5 of them in the time it took me to make one. Whatever it is, like these are just what? Like the brain. So instead, just saying I did the thing. The thing is done. And I can be proud of that. I can acknowledge that. I can say, awesome. I am awesome. I am a great, awesome, crazy, insert potential swear words here person. Like, this is yes. Like, let's go.
There's a quote from someone named, I think her name's Judy Holler, where she, and it's a simple quote, but she said, if you're crazy busy, you're more crazy than busy.
It's kind of a fun quote. I mean,
it's simple, but it's interesting to, like, when you really think about it, like how much productivity are you hurting in yourself because you are working all the time, or you're doing something constantly?
Sure. Okay. So heard. However, I at the same time wouldn't want to suggest that anybody who is, you know, self-described as crazy busy and enjoying it, or being wildly successful in the ways they want to be successful, right? Is, you know, that it's like, good for you. Yeah, rock on, you know, go for it. Shoot your shot if you got it.
Yeah, and to be fair, like, I love what I do. Like being able to do this, being able to edit videos and, you know, shoot when I can, and also stream occasionally. Like, I love all those aspects of my job. I love what I do. But even when you love what you do, it's still not, and again, this is like, I'm going to inject my opinion in here. This is not like, this is fact. But my opinion is like, it's not healthy to hyper focus on that above being with your family if you have one, or like spending social time with people, or like or reading a book, like if that's what you do. So, you know,
books are cool, dude.
Yeah,
I like books.
Yeah, you like books a lot more than I do.
when he said that hooked book, I was like, okay. I like typed it out. I'm like, I gotta go check that out. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, you're like, basically my book report. It's like, oh, this book sounds interesting. Hey, Bex, you want to read that? Tell me about it.
Yes is always the answer. I think you're right. And I think what we're speaking to is just the idea of I think it's the idea of mindfulness. I think that's how we can wrap up the idea and the concept. It's just the idea of being mindful of what you're doing, why you're doing it, and then saying, do I like this? Is this healthy? If it's not to say that, you know, we all can't snap we can't just snap our fingers and like suddenly our entire life is different. What we can do is acknowledge things and then say, okay, like I want this to be better, and then we improve. You know, it's
Right.
crazy to think what I was like 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It's like it's wild, but you just keep taking these small steps. You keep making the small changes. Look at those decision points that you can make to say, instead of doing this, I'll do this. We're talking about books. There was a book that came out that was just about like the small decisions we make on a day-to-day basis. I can't remember the name of the author, but it's the idea that the small things you decide to do are what make all the biggest changes.
Yeah.
So every time you think of like, okay, man, I just really am craving a sip of soda. Instead you say, I'm going to sip of water. And that can be the one small thing you did that day. But those things consistently over time, they create these new worlds of opportunity for people.
Yeah, it's always little small changes that reframe your mindset, and that's it's not a one large step. You don't like just jump into the deep end and hope you survive. Like, no, it's small steps, and every step gets you closer to the place you need to be.
Boom, nailed it. Okay, well, that sounds like a podcast episode. This has been an absolute pleasure and a great discussion. Had a blast. I want to give another shout out to Menashe Kestenbaum for being here and, just giving us some of their insight onto what they're thinking about as far as the mental health sphere goes, how they're going to be, changing things. Be sure to check out Glimmer Mental Health. So that's their startup looking to shake up the North American mental health sphere. Tim, it's been a pleasure, man.
Absolutely.
As always.
It is
as
always a pleasure, isn't it?
Dude, as always.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, and you always got, and your beard always looks so good. It just
does it?
It's the same beard always, and I think that's impressive.
It's definitely not. You should see it like the day that it gets like really full, and then the day I trim it. It's an entirely different look.
Now I'm gonna keep my eyes open for it.
Yeah.
Now
You have to look. Right now, it's kind of
like
like in the in between stage. So this is like it's still pretty decent, but it hasn't gotten to like thick boy yet. Yeah. So.
Okay. No, that's good. That's good. That's good.
I'll show you at some point.
Oh, great. No, let's have a little beard photo exchange. This is okay. Happy day to everybody.
Small steps.
Oh my God. Hey, thank you for listening to episode 6 of the StreamSix Academy Podcast. Once again, we want to hear your feedback, so please let us know. You can give us comments.
We've
Twitch,
got it back full
Discord.
circle.
I did a song. I didn't even think about it. That is ridiculous. Okay, we bookended it. There's books, there's songs, it's all wrapped up in a nice little clean present under the Christmas tree. Okay, well, thank you so much to everybody for listening. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Please give us the feedback and let us know what you think. What are your thoughts in this sphere? What are you struggling with? What are things that you want answers to? We would love to hear your feedback. And once again, shout out to Menashe and shout out to this brilliant tech wizard guy over here, who you maybe can see or maybe can't see. But that's because they're a wizard. Not because of the video or audio format. It's just wizardry.
It has nothing to do with how I'll edit it.
Okay, and on that note, see everybody next time.